In this video, I'm going to show you how I transformed my yard from what it was like before to what it's like now, step by step, with all the details. In the previous video, I showed you how I made a system that hid my pool with a foldable deck in my yard, which now not only allowed me to have a pool, but a yard where I could put a table or a grill and anything I wanted. But obviously there was still a lot left to do. The first thing was to get and install a ladder, since my house didn't come with a ladder, and it was impossible to get up to the terrace even to clean it or remove the leaves that got stuck there on the roof. I started looking for used things and I found this one. It's a ladder that was perfect for the place I wanted. It had the exact measurements, it seemed tailor-made, and it's not a common ladder as it's a bit more inclined and slender. But that's exactly what I wanted because I didn't want it to take up too much space. When I took them out, a piece of the wood broke off, but they still looked very good and in place. To place it, I presented it and calculated where the legs would end up against the floor. In those places, I made 2 holes and put it there. I filled the holes with concrete so it doesn't move anymore. At the top, what I did was screw it with several screws into the concrete of the wall. This way we reduce the vibrations and it stays fixed in place. Now I wanted to see how to put some roof on it, but it had to be transparent as it had to let in as much sun and light as possible. I opted to make a pergola. I had already made one in my previous house with wooden braces. You can see the video here on my channel, but I wanted to try something new and also give it a more rustic feel. So I decided to use wooden logs. These logs are from eucalyptus, a tree that grows a lot in my country. In fact, it's the same tree I used for the deck boards, and it's from reforested wood. Now I had to see how to place them. I was lucky that I had 2 walls that formed an L, so I only had to put in 1 pillar or column. To put it on the ground, first of all, I had to make some modifications. After I put the deck, I had a part with tiles, and it was too big, so I wanted to cut it a bit. I shaped the tip of the deck in such a way that it would form a diagonal corner, let's say, and then where it ended, I used the grinder with a concrete cutting disc to cut the floor and remove that excess piece. Now on that remaining soil, I could place the wooden column. There are a couple of ways to do it. The first is to dig a hole and bury the trunk, but over time the moisture penetrates the trunk, rots it, and it breaks. Many paint the part that is buried with tar to prevent this. Still, I chose the second option. I dug a hole and filled it with concrete. Then I put in a column support, which is basically a painted metal piece that will allow the trunk to be placed there and be a few centimeters off the ground. This would prevent it from absorbing ground moisture. After positioning it, I secured the trunk in place with screws to prevent movement or tipping. Now it was time to put the beam in place, so to speak. I marked the exact position where the column ended on the wall using Bremen's laser level. And in that place, I put this, which is a beam support for a log. Basically a bent metal that allows the log to rest there. I supported one of the corners of the log there, which by the way was very difficult for me because it weighed a ton. But well, I was putting it there as I could, first as if I got under it, and I was lifting it little by little until it was high enough to be able to support it on the wall and then support it on that support that we had previously screwed in. And on the other side, I lifted it and supported it on the bottom of the log that we used as a column. Now we just needed to put the cross logs supported on the beam that would form the pergola. I put 8 so it doesn't look too crowded and looks good. I was arranging the logs one by one with my girlfriend's help, especially to lift them as each log is very heavy. I was lucky that my wall had a kind of mini roof, which is solid concrete and is attached to the wall beam, so it is super resistant. So I leaned the logs there instead of against the ceiling. I calculated it in such a way that they are minimally inclined so that when I put the roof on, the water can drain very well. And just the roof I made of this. These are 4mm polycarbonate sheets, which have a 93% light passage and also block UV rays. Putting them on is super easy. They come with a plastic to protect them that we have to peel off. Notice, because it is printed on the plastic, where it has UV protection. That has to go up. Otherwise, the film wouldn't work, and with the sun, it would dry out and break. It would start to crack. We can screw the plates wherever we want. I use small caps to stop water from entering and rusting the screw. As you can see, it's impossible for the plate to be perfectly flat since the logs are irregular, but that's why I use this plate, as it bends and so it doesn't look bad or break. This is how it looked after everything was put together. Underneath the stairs, there was a space where there was a mini countertop and a huge old sink. It was practically never used. The first thing I did was remove everything from there, breaking everything and taking it out. I put in that place a structure of iron pipes that I screwed to the wall and welded against the stairs. This way, everything would be more than firm. And on the structure, I put a eucalyptus board that I had. Although, as it was very small, I took a piece of board that I had and glued it to one end, holding it very tightly so that it does not come off or move. I gave it a coat of varnish, and on top I put this sink, which is much smaller than the other one, since it was basically not used, and no more was needed than that. I connected it to the drain pipe using a plastic tube, since before it had a super cumbersome metal one. The wall had a part of old tiles, and I didn't like them anymore, so I glued a rustic wood-like ceramic and used a glue to stick ceramics on ceramics, and it turned out perfect. At the bottom, we made 2 doors to make it look nice, but we made them very simple with a square wooden structure that we made by joining some braces. We varnished them and nailed a jute fabric to them, and to prevent damage, we gave them a coat of clear lacquer. And now to place them, I printed these, which are some stops, let's say. I put one in a corner of the wood and another on the floor, and we made some small holes in the wood in the same places. So we put them in place and they stay firm but able to rotate to open and close. A simple and cheap solution. Finally, to prevent them from opening on their own, we put a magnet on each one. The floor had some yellow and somewhat ugly ceramics. My first idea was to cover them with small pebbles, and it looked nice, but as you walked, they moved, fell on the ground, stuck to your shoes, or maybe you slipped and fell, so we removed them. We bought these, which are ceramics, with a rather rustic but colorful design, and we glued them to the floor. For this, I used a floor-on-floor adhesive that is very easy to apply. First, we cleaned the floor well, then we prepared the mixture, which is basically mixing it with water until it becomes a uniform mass. With a notched trowel, we spread it on the floor so that it forms grooves. The mixture should not be flat, and then I wet the back of the ceramic and placed it. Once placed, we have to hit it from all sides. This causes the grooves to break down and stick well with a suction effect, so to speak. The way to know if it's well placed is by the noise. When it's hit, it should sound a dry and firm hit, as if you were hitting any floor, so to speak. If it sounds more like a rumble or hollow, or let's say as if you were hitting a head, then it's wrong. You have to put it back, because if not, it's going to break someday over time. Between each one, we put some separators. This way, they all remained at the same distance, and you have to make sure they all stay at the same height level. You can also use some separators for this, but if you have patience, you can do it perfectly by eye. 12 hours later, we can put the grout. The grout is what is put between one and another to seal the spaces. It is prepared with water. At first, I injected it with a syringe, which was neat, but it makes no sense. Just throw it in the joints, pass the trowel, and leave it smooth. And if it gets stained more, but when it dries a bit, pass a dry cloth and everything goes away. It's perfect. The grout comes in many colors, so choose the one you want the most. To cut the ceramic in case you need it, you can use a grinder with a disc or ceramic cutting or one of these tools to cut ceramic. It's very easy to use since you just place it, slide the small wheel, and tighten it. The only bad thing is that it only works for straight cuts, but it's pretty good. For the side of the deck, first of all, I painted it a different color. I didn't really like that brown I had put on it, so I sanded it all down and repainted it. This time in a rustic white. I like it much better how it turned out. And for the wall that was very ugly, I made it very simple. The wall was in perfect condition, but it had some decorations like stuck bricks that I didn't like. So I removed it, planted 2 of these vines that expand on the walls, but of course they are obviously going to take many years to grow. So in the meantime, what I did was buy the same vine, but made of plastic, and with that cover the entire ugly wall. I didn't think about replastering and painting it again because eventually the plan is going to cover everything, and the wall is in perfect condition. There was no need to do so much work. Taking advantage that just inches on the other side of the wall, I had a gas outlet. We put a gas stove in the patio. I connected it using a well-secured high-pressure gas hose and sealants. This stove is old, and I also got it used from someone who didn't want it anymore, but it's made of cast iron and bronze. I didn't just buy it to heat the patio, but my idea is also to use it for the pool, but you'll see that later. One of the things I liked the most was missing, which is the lighting of the whole place. I made the main lamp from this. I went to the park and brought back a huge log that I found on the ground and that I liked quite a bit. I wanted the lamp's cable not to be visible. So I bought this 24 millimeter thick rope and ran the cable through it. This is very easy. As you can see, the rope is made like 3 smaller ropes. So we have to grab the cable and support it, then twist the rope, and you will see it opens up. Let's say there we put the cable and we pass it in the same way through the whole rope. Now it's a bit to each one's taste. What I did was put 2 ropes on each side of the log to also use them to hang it, and in the middle a coiled rope. In total, it served me to put 4 lamps. At the end of the ropes, I put a lamp holder, and so that it was not visible, I wrapped everything with a thinner rope. It turned out very good for me. The lamps I used are smart light emitting diode lamps, so I could link them to my home system. The other lamp we made is completely different. The first thing we did was use a piñata. We inflated it and prepared this mixture that is water, white vinyl glue, and cornstarch. And there we soaked a thin jute rope. It has to be well soaked, and we were sticking it all over the balloon. The amount of rope you use is up to each one. We did it until it looked like this. The following day after drying, we can pop the balloon and everything will remain in place since the thread will be very hard. What I did was cut it with pliers to give it the shape I wanted, and all we have to do is pass a cable with a lamp holder and put the lamp we want. We put this light-emitting diode filament lamp that we thought was cute, and a thread covered in fabric that matched with the other lamp and the decoration. To finish, I painted the wall, the windows, and everything that was old in white so that it would look nice and match with the place. Since we wanted to use this space also in winter, we had to put up a canvas or a fabric that keeps some of the heat from the stove and closes off the place a bit. So I started looking for used things again, and I found this a nearly 4-meter transparent awning that, while not exactly the size I needed, was perfect for me. These things are very expensive, but I was lucky to get it for just about $50, almost nothing in comparison. It's basically a transparent plastic tarp that rolls up on an aluminum tube, and at the ends it has 2 anchors that go on the supports, which, by the way, I didn't have the supports, but neither the ones I wanted to buy. Before thinking about how I was going to put it, I wanted to see how I was going to automate it. Since I wanted it to be electric, I found this motor that cost me about 2,000 pesos, or about $10 more or less. It's a curtain motor that can lift up to 100 kilos. It usually goes inside the curtains so that the motor is not visible. The motor had the rotating part, let's say, in one corner, and inside I saw that it had a solid aluminum structure. So what I did was shape one of the ends of the awning anchors a bit with the grinder, and I saw that it fit into the motor, and now I could turn it from there. I had to screw it to the log, so I designed these 3D supports. I printed it with 100% fill for maximum strength. I printed it using white PLA filament from Grill-On 3, which is what I'm printing everything with because of the material quality. And as you can see inside that support, there is a bearing, and the bearing fits right with the motor anchor. On the other side, I put an adapter and also put the awning anchor, and that's how it turned out. I had to put the motor on the outside because it was impossible to hide it inside the awning tube, but it still turned out very good. I wrapped it in jute thread so that it matches the place and doesn't look ugly. And for the cables, I put a small key similar to the one I use for the pool system. So now I could raise and lower it calmly, and it also worked perfect. To finish, we hung decorations and little things we had around there, and that's how my patio is turning out. Much work remains, including the table I'm constructing and more. I'll make a part 2 of this video, finishing everything else, taking advantage of that. If you have any questions, leave your comment on this video, and I will be answering them in the next video. Beyond the fact that it's unfinished, I'm very happy with how it's turning out, and I think it's really a brutal change in the yard. To catch the rest, subscribe to my channel and like this video. See you next time.